Hello, this is Ty Bollinger. Welcome to The Truth About Detox. Now, the purpose of this three-part documentary is to provide you with the nuts and bolts about detoxification that will form a roadmap enabling you to properly detoxify your body, thus giving you the proper internal terrain to facilitate optimal health. Fish cannot live in toxic water, neither can we thrive if our bodies are toxic. But how many physicians will actually tell you that in order to be healthy, we must detoxify? Here's the main problem. Medical schools teach that virtually all illnesses are caused by germs or genetics. So the solution, of course, is to name and label each disease, over 10,000 of them, by the way, and then have us believe that each of these diseases can be remedied by surgery and drugs that oftentimes kill the bad germs. But how do we come to believe that there's a germ for every disease? Have you ever drank a glass of milk? I'm guessing that you have. Well, unless it was raw milk, it's likely that the milk was pasteurized. Now, pasteurization, named after scientist Louis Pasteur, who developed this process, involves heating raw milk to very high temperatures in order to kill the germs and the bacteria inside the milk and prevent infections. The idea is that germs are bad and that they are the cause of disease and illness. Now, based on that assumption, it makes sense that killing germs would be the solution to preventing and treating disease. This theory that germs, including viruses, bacteria, etc., are the cause of illness is the foundation of Western medicine. It's called the germ theory of disease. But there's a fascinating history behind both the germ theory of disease and its controversial proponent, Louis Pasteur. In 19th century France, while Pasteur was advocating the notion of germs as the cause of disease, another French scientist named Antoine Béchamp advocating a conflicting theory known as the cellular theory of disease. Now, Béchamp's cellular theory is almost completely opposite to Pasteur's germ theory. Béchamp noted that these germs that Pasteur was so terrified of were actually opportunistic in nature. They were ubiquitous. In other words, they were everywhere, and they even existed inside of us in a symbiotic, interdependent relationship. Béchamp noticed in his research that it was only when the tissue of the host became damaged or compromised that these germs actually began to manifest as a prevailing symptom, not the cause of a disease. Béchamp advocated not the killing of the germs, but the cultivation of health through detoxification, diet, hygiene, and healthy lifestyle practices such as fresh air and exercise. The idea is that if a person has a strong immune system and good quality tissue, terrain, as Béchamp called it, the germs will not manifest in the person and they will have good health. It's only when their health starts to decline due to personal neglect, poor lifestyle choices, poor food choices, etc., that they will become victim to infections. Béchamp saw the infection as a result of illness, not the primary cause. He noticed that as a person restored his or her health through diet, hygiene, and detoxification, that the infection went away on its own without needing measures to kill it. Béchamp found that a diseased, acidic, low-oxygen cellular environment is created by a toxic, nutrient-deficient diet, toxic emotions, and a toxic lifestyle. Now, Pasteur and Béchamp had a long and often bitter rivalry regarding who was right about the true cause of illness, and in the end, Pasteur's germ theory ended up winning the day with mainstream medicine, owing in large part to the fact that this theory enabled mainstream medicine to hugely profit from patented drugs and treatments to fight this war on germs. Rest assured, folks, every time that a war is declared, someone is profiting. You see, if Béchamp's discoveries had been incorporated into current medical curriculum, it would have likely meant a virtual elimination of disease and the end of the pharmaceutical industry. Ultimately, Pasteur's ideas were accepted by society and Béchamp was pretty much forgotten. Today, approximately 200 years after Béchamp was born, the practice of Western medicine is based on Pasteur's germ theory, which gives rise to the use of vaccinations, antibiotics, and other drugs. The germ theory says vaccinate the fish, whereas Béchamp's cellular theory gives rise to healing protocols like detoxification and proper nutrition. The cellular theory says clean the tank. The irony is that towards the end of his life, Pasteur renounced the germ theory and he admitted that Béchamp was right all along. And as Paul Harvey used to say, now you know the rest of the story. The germ theory of medicine stands in stark contrast to thousands of years of man looking into nature to nourish and heal, dating all the way back to ancient Chinese medicine, which treated the whole body instead of merely symptoms of illness. Though mainstream medicine might have us believe otherwise, the simple truth is that nobody ever became ill due to a deficiency in pharmaceutical drugs. The truth is that most illness is due to cellular malfunctions caused by toxicity and a deficiency of nutrients at the cellular level. Thus, we have the need for detoxification. Based on Béchamp's cellular theory of disease, understanding which organs are involved in detoxification and optimizing their function is essential, especially if you suffer with symptoms of chronic disease. We have the skin, the liver, the gallbladder, colon, the large and small intestines, kidneys, and lungs specifically. Toxic buildup can directly cause disease to develop, and it can worsen the symptoms and the progression of the disease process. Gently optimizing your organs of detoxification, which I just mentioned, will encourage your body to release toxins and help improve your body's overall functioning, which will help you feel better. Toxins are introduced into your body in two main ways: through normal physiologic processes like eating and breathing, and through chemical exposure in the environment. In theory, your body should be able to process the waste products and the toxins that you're exposed to. However, the environment has been flooded by an overwhelming number of chemicals that our bodies have a hard time keeping up with. According to the Environmental Working Group, there are nearly 85,000 chemicals currently approved for use in the United States, and that number is rapidly increasing. No wonder our bodies are completely overwhelmed and not working optimally. You are constantly exposed to chemicals through the air that you breathe, the foods that you eat, and the products that you use, like personal care products and cleaning products. And although you cannot always control the chemicals and the toxicity that you're exposed to, you can influence and encourage your body's natural detoxification and elimination processes. Gently optimizing the organs of detoxification will enhance your body's functioning, improving how you feel on a day-to-day basis. By using lifestyle and dietary techniques, you can improve the functioning of your body and increase the ability to detoxify the toxins which you currently are exposed to. Has your physician ever recommended that you detoxify your body? It's very unlikely. But why? I asked Dr. David Brownstein if he could elaborate how much detoxification training that doctors typically receive while in medical school.
In medical school, we're not taught about these toxic items, how to check for them, and whether they even really exist. So most doctors have no clue whether someone has high levels of mercury and lead and other items. And I learned that on my own and have been checking people for a long time and finding that most of the people have these toxic items in their body. When I realized that, people were actually toxic, that detoxification actually does help people, I was stunned that I wasn't taught this in medical school. And I went back to some of my professors and talked to them about it, and there was really no interest in them from these ideas, since there wasn't a drug to treat this.
In our quest, we wanted to find out what the root cause of all disease is. I mean, why do you need to cleanse? Why do you need to detox? Well, first of all, we found out that the root cause of all disease, cancer, it doesn't matter, is a combination of toxins and chemicals that are accumulating inside your body. And that's from the food that you're eating, the air that you're breathing, the parasites that you're exposed to, the amount of stress that you're under on a daily basis. It all accumulates in the system, and we have natural ways to eliminate chemicals and toxins through urination, through defecation, through sweating of the skin, through respiration. And women have 5 elimination routes. They have their menses, their menstrual cycles. So what we found was all of these natural cycles that the body goes through to eliminate toxins and chemicals naturally were being blocked. And we were looking at different individuals and different diseases and different chemicals that initiate different disease processes in the body. And we found that if someone is taking in 2 million chemicals or toxins, and you might think that's a lot, but just one bag of NutraSweet or aspartame might contain 10,000 toxic chemicals. So these are small. Even endocrine disrupting chemicals are parts per billion that can affect you and have a negative effect on your system. And what it boils down to is an alteration in all your systems. The endocrine system shuts down, the digestive system shuts down, the neurological system shuts down. And so what I always try to do is find the easiest, simplest solution to reactivate the body's self-healing mechanism. So I started saying, all right, we know that chemicals and toxins are causing every single disease. So what's the easiest way to get rid of those, and what's the easiest way to reopen the body's elimination routes so the body can naturally get rid of all these things? And what's the easiest way to reactivate the body's self-healing mechanism? So that's what got me on the quest of looking for solutions and finding out that from the beginning of time, I mean, 2700 BC, there's records of fasting. That's even before Christ. There's colonics date back to 1700 BC. The earth has always cleansed itself. Animals continue to cleanse themselves. It's the body's natural way to eliminate chemicals and toxins and give the body the ability to heal itself by purging itself of all these things. Every religious text that's ever been written talks about 40 days of fasting or some sort of fasting or cleansing process that takes place in the body.
Every religious literature example in history, the great religious leaders, how did they connect with their divine beings, their gods? How did they do it? Usually it involves a story where they went out into nature somewhere, they disconnected from the toxic society, and they would eat roots and herbs, or they would fast, or they would go through other cleansing types of activities. And over time, as they cleaned up their bodies and their minds, then they were able to connect with the divine. And it is this story that is part of the Bible and other religious texts from all over the world.
In the Eastern thought forms, ancient Chinese type medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, even homeopathic medicine, which was a leap forward in the Western world a couple of hundred years ago, began, well, let's say they adopted this idea that the natural world has a wisdom, there are principles, there are laws that govern the universe. They wanted to learn from them, abide by them, duplicate them, not dominate and corrupt and crush and kill them. And so that was a more honoring principle. And there are people in the West, scientists, researchers, doctors that knew this, and they were largely shunned while Louis Pasteur was adopted as, you know, the savior of the universe, right? Let's kill stuff because they're bad, the bacteria.
Right, pasteurization, right?
Right.
Pasteurized milk, we kill all the
bacteria, right. Okay. Yeah, because the wrong-headed notion is bacteria causes disease, when in reality, pathogenic bacteria are the result of disease, the imbalance in the body. That again is, now we go to Antoine Béchamp, Claude Bernard, the French physiologist. They talked about the terrain, the law of the terrain. The terrain, the milieu, the environment determines health or disease, not the pathogen. That's critical. Now, it's weird because we have been taught in our growing up in the West that the pathogen is the cause of disease. Suddenly we're realizing, no, the pathogen is the result of disease, the imbalance. And so these diseases, we don't need to kill stuff. What we need to do is restore that balance, that healthy terrain, that rainforest in its pristine state, that microbiome. And that's the distinct difference in why everybody in the Western world, probably everybody on planet Earth, has to concern themselves with this concept of detoxification as a primary starting point to healing. Not an end point or a midpoint, a starting point.
I wouldn't mind starting by demystifying the idea of detoxification, because I think what a lot of folks would like to understand is that we are born with the virtue and ability to detoxify every second of every day. Our livers do it, our lungs do it, our skin does it. You know, we got to breathe this stuff out, poop it out, we got to sweat it out, pee it out, but we do a pretty good job at that. So we're born with the inherent ability to detoxify. However, and this is key, some of us much better than others. In a clinical sense, I've been doing genetic analyses for over a decade now, looking at the inherent differences in individuals by virtue of their ability to throw away toxins. And if I may, maybe I'll start with an analogy that I use with my patients that gets them to better understand what toxins are and perhaps how we deal with them. There's all kinds of toxins around us. You know, since the industrial age, we've seen more than 80,000 in production, most of which, by the way, haven't even been looked at for their level of safety. Those are the ones that we know we've been synthesizing and creating as humans. There are gazillions of others that are just natural and inherent to our environment. For example, radon gas. By the way, the #2 silent killer for lung cancer, or at least a producer of lung cancer, is radon gas, next to smoking. Okay? We found this in bedrock. This is inherent into the northeastern seaboard, and it traps itself in our basements. You can get a radon detector to see what your levels are in your basement. It's a simple $100 device. You have somebody come in and check that. But if you don't deal with it and you've got it high levels, then that's going to predispose you to lung cancer, significant. That's a toxin our bodies have to handle and manage. There's background UV radiation on a regular basis. We're exposed to that toxin. Stress, which is probably North America's #1 silent killer, contributing to all types of things, including heart disease and cancer. That in too high of an amount over time is toxic. That's a toxin. Our own hormones that we produce to manage our day-to-day function and metabolism, our mood, our skin, hair, and nail growth, our viability, if it's too high or perhaps too low, is also toxic to our body. So toxins are not simply these elusive things we used to refer to as poison. They are those things that our body, our liver, our kidneys, our lungs have to manage on a day-to-day basis. When A, we have the genes that don't deal with toxins very well, or B, these accumulate to the point where we burden our threshold, our ability to manage, that is then disease. Disease ensues, ill health ensues.
Dr. Weil just made a statement that makes so much sense to me. He mentioned that sickness and disease results when we overburden our body's ability to deal with and manage toxins, and the toxicity begins to accumulate. It kind of reminds me of a functioning toilet versus a clogged toilet. It might be the same exact toilet, but if the pipes are clogged, then we have very different results when you try to flush. The key variable is not the toilet, it's the pipes. Are they clogged? Or are they clean and allowing the waste to be removed? Continuing with another common illustration, let's listen to Dr. Edward Group as he compares a toxic body to dirty pots and pans left in the kitchen for several days.
It's like let's say you cook in your kitchen one day and you leave the pots and pans there, and then you come back to cook a meal the next day and you leave your pots and pans there, and then you come back and cook the meal the next day. Well, by the third day, you're going to have fungus, mold, pests, bacteria, viruses. You're going to have a slew of a toxic environment in that kitchen to where even if you cook something, you would probably get sick. You clean your car, you clean your house, you clean your kitchen, but who cleans their body on a regular basis? People take a shower every day to rinse the outside of their body, but they don't cleanse the inside of their bodies every day. You can detoxify, but if you still put the same chemicals and everything in your body, you're still going to end up with the same result.
If you can effectively remove those toxicities, the key operative word here is effective. If you can effectively remove those toxicities, by definition, chronic disease cannot exist.
I just want to be clear about saying we're all toxic. Some of us deal better with toxins than others, so we're quickly clearing these toxins out of our system. If others, by virtue of their genetic susceptibility, aren't clearing as well or as functionally getting rid of the trash, they will accumulate these toxins, whether it's heavy metals, whether it's plastics, whether it's chemicals from the 80,000 plus that are now circulating our environment post-industrial age, or perhaps it's even our own induced toxic state from stress, lack of sleep. We're just not able to clear these things. We will start to feel extreme fatigue. Our cells start to shut down, headaches, insomnia. We literally start to show signs as if we are alcoholic. Our liver start to become fatty in the preliminary stages of alcoholism. Our liver can't clear. It starts to get burdened and enzymes start to elevate. A couple that you can ask your family doctor for: AST, ALT, GGT, ALP. These are enzymes that start to show an increased level because the liver is burdened. If you're not having regular bowel movements, you can typically tend to accumulate toxins slightly. Because again, remember, you're meant to pee it out, poop it out, sweat it out, and breathe it out. That's how our bodies get rid of these things. You will, when you are toxic, begin to experience whatever your Achilles heel might be, whatever you are predisposed to genetically. And here's the message I want to drive home. You can't change your genes. Ultimately, that is the blueprint your mom and dad have dealt you. But you can manage your genetic expression. And that's the most empowering thing. So if we learn that we are more predisposed than the average person to toxins and or sensitivity to those toxins, we want to identify what they are, and we want to learn through genetic evaluation what our bodies need more or less of.
We did studies on working with detoxification with people first before we put them on any type of nutraceuticals. And then we also did studies when people came in and just put them on nutraceuticals. And what we found was if we ran people through an intestinal cleanse, multiple liver and gallbladder cleansing, parasite cleansing, heavy metal, chemical cleansing from their body, and then at that point in time reevaluated them, we found that the majority of their symptoms had gone away.
Just from the cleansing?
Just from the cleansing itself. Just from the cleansing itself. And so that's what when we realized how powerful the body is and what it can do to repair itself with just cleansing. Now, I think that you need a lot of other nutraceuticals these days because we are exposed to so many chemicals and everything, but I also am a firm believer in keeping the body clean on a regular basis.
In the Western world where we are, the United States, North America, Canada, and all of that, we adopted something that was not really ideal for disease prevention. The idea that disease is caused by a germ. And so we became the warfaring species that we seem to be in attacking and killing things in order to be healthy. Well, what we've succeeded in doing is attacking and killing ourselves by tackling something that's known now as the microbiome.
When our gut is out of balance with all the chemicals, the toxins, genetically modified foods, pesticides, antibiotics, prescription medications that people are on, vaccines, flu shots, I mean, you name it. There's millions of different chemicals out there that we're dealing with. All of those have a negative effect on the gut, and they burn holes through the gut lining, causing leaky gut syndrome. They kill all the good bacteria, the good probiotics we have, which when we have a good working biodome in our gut, it's the first step to becoming healthy. I mean, it really is. I mean, the gut will help you detoxify a lot of that stuff whenever it comes in initially. So when we found out the importance of the gut and how important it is in detoxification and cleansing, then that was one of our first focus points on repairing the gut system.
Dr. Group just mentioned that his primary focus is to repair the gut system, which is commonly referred to as the biodome or the microbiome or the microbiota. Now, this makes sense in light of the fact that up to 90% of all disease can be traced back to the gut and the health of the microbiome. Did you know that there are up to 100 trillion microbial cells in each and every one of us, primarily in our gut? That means that there are 10 times as many outside organisms as there are human cells in our body. In other words, we're really only about 10% human. I'm sure that you've heard of GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Now, one of the main problems with GMOs is the herbicide glyphosate, which is used in the growing of many GMO crops that have been engineered to resist glyphosate. You might know glyphosate by another name, Roundup. There are many GMO crops that are considered Roundup ready. In other words, you can douse them with massive amounts of glyphosate and it won't kill them, but it will obliterate all the weeds around them. But is your body Roundup ready? Is your blood Roundup ready? Is your gut Roundup ready? The answer to these questions is no. Glyphosate has been shown to negatively impact the gut because it alters the balance of the bacteria in the microbiome, setting the stage for leaky gut and autoimmune disease. But that's not all. In 2015, the World Health Organization announced that glyphosate is a probable human carcinogen. Last year, I traveled with my entire family to Toronto, Canada, and I got a chance to speak to then 17-year-old Canadian activist Rachel Parent, who's become a well-known health freedom advocate due to her involvement in the GMO debate. Let's listen to Rachel discuss how we are not being given true informed consent when it comes to our food because of the lack of GMO labeling. And it's about informed consent, right?
Yep.
You shouldn't be eating food that is poisonous without knowing it.
Exactly.
So
it's all of our right to know. We all deserve the exact same right to know. 64 other countries around the world already require mandatory GMO labeling. So why not us or the United States? And in fact, we're the only two countries, industrialized countries in the entire world that don't have mandatory GMO labeling. We're fortunate enough to live in a democracy, but at the same time, how much of a democracy is it if we can't even choose what we're putting in our bodies, what we're feeding to our families, what we're feeding to our kids? So that's why we need to work towards getting labeling. GMOs will never feed the world. It can't happen, especially right now. GMOs don't increase yields. They don't decrease water intake. And they use more pesticides, more herbicides. They're more expensive for farmers. And actually, an example of this is in India. Right now, there's one farmer every 30 minutes committing suicide because of GMOs, because their crops are failing, and they can't afford to feed their families. And by Indian law, if a farmer commits suicide, the debt isn't passed on to their family. So this is why that's happening. There's been over 250,000 suicides, and the number is growing. And so then you're increasing poverty. If the main person in the family is gone, how is the rest of the family going to sustain themselves? And the same thing is happening in Argentina, in Africa. The numbers are growing, and it's really sad and unfortunate because poverty is growing because of this issue.
You got to have vegetables, healthy vegetables, ideally organic, because if it's not organic, it's likely sprayed with Roundup or some other potent toxic derivative.
Which is now, is it a known carcinogen or a probable carcinogen?
Well, in 2015, the World Health Organization classified it as a Class 2A carcinogen.
Okay.
So it's definitely a carcinogen. No, it's been, that's what the experts say. So
and we spray it on food?
Well, not that much, only 10 billion tons, or 10 million tons.
Oh.
10 million tons.
Okay, so just 10 million tons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Collectively on the U.S. soil since it's been introduced. That's a lot of glyphosate. We say glyphosate, or well, Roundup is actually more accurate because it's with a surfactant. Surfactant makes it about 1,000 times more toxic because it just works synergistically with the glyphosate in the.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
What we're talking about is even more carcinogenic than what's been
glyphosate
declared as a
carcinogen. Right. Because Roundup is much, much worse.
We're filming this in my forensic food laboratory. We've got mass spectrometry instrumentation behind you, an ion chromatograph behind me, liquid chromatograph over there, time of flight systems. I look at the science of food contamination, heavy metals, chemicals, fluoride in water, mercury in vaccines, let's say. All of these different areas of contamination, I analyze them and quantify them. There are contaminants that are so common in food, in medicine, in water, and in the environment, even in skincare products that you put on, that the key element here is to, number one, avoid as much contamination as you can. Number two, rely on your body's natural detoxification processes that are built into your DNA. It's built into your biology to expel toxins.
People aren't taught that they have the most powerful healing mechanism right inside their body. What they're taught is they have to look outside of their body. They have to rely on somebody else to heal them instead of taking that power in themselves and focusing on what they can do to heal themselves naturally.
The great failing of our medical system is that it convinces people to think that they're trapped in an outcome that they can't control. And doctors tell you things like, oh, you got cancer, like being struck by lightning. Well, it doesn't happen that way. If you believe in the laws of cause and effect, then you believe that every disease had an underlying cause. Otherwise, how could it appear? There's no such thing as spontaneous sickness. Mm-hmm. Anyone who believes in that believes in voodoo. What, does your doctor have a voodoo doll and he's like pricking you with cancer points? No, it's cause and effect. Well, what's the cause? Cause is what's circulating your blood and nourishing or poisoning your organs. How did you get pancreatic cancer? Your pancreas was bathed in blood that was full of toxins. There's no other explanation. Yeah. It's not magic. It's not black magic. It's not voodoo, man. It's cause and effect. My philosophy on detoxification is, yeah, there are cases in which you can work with a naturopathic physician, for example, for acute detox strategies and supplements and so on. But for day-to-day detox, it's about avoiding exposure to the toxins. And that means making informed choices about what you drink, what you eat, what you put on your skin, and where you live, the air around you. The acute toxification of your body happens when you combine environmental exposure with suppressed biological vitality. In other words, a healthy body will expel toxins more rapidly. A compromised body, which is where most people are these days in first world nations like America, is unable to rally, if you will, the chemical processes that eliminate toxins.
Our body naturally detoxifies. That's why we have the large intestine, that's why we have the lymph system, that's why we have the kidneys, that's why we have our liver, that's why we have our lungs. They also take in oxygen, but they also get rid of toxins as well, and that's why we have our skin. Our skin is one of the largest detoxifier. It's also an infrared panel that takes in the sun, which is one of the greatest things for healing and for detoxifying. Without detoxification, you know, even if we lived in a pristine planet, okay, we still need to detoxify. There's always waste products. And everything that lives poops, Ty. So our cells poop, our bacteria poop, you know, everything poops, buddy. So, you know, so detoxification is a normal process of life.
It comes down to the laws of cause and effect. If you live a lifestyle that is anti-cancer, that is detoxing, then you're not going to develop cancer or other diseases. You know, unless you go walking through Chernobyl or some nuclear reactor, right, and you get this deadly dose of radiation, that's different, right? But hopefully you're not doing that. You're just getting background radiation, you know, what, like 0.2 microsieverts a day or something. It's nothing. Your body can deal with that. Your body actually was designed to deal with background radiation. Your body has a repair mechanism for your DNA and for your cells. You are a self-repairing system.
Wow, Mike really hit the nail on the head. It all goes back to the laws of cause and effect. In this scenario, toxins cause disease, but if we remove the toxins, then we can heal, because God made our bodies in such a manner that we are self-repairing systems. That's amazing when you really think about it. In his next segment, Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, uses a powerful analogy to help explain how detoxification can provide every cell in our body with the tools to help repair potential damage and create health.
It's like if you drove a car that had its own little nanobot mechanic in the trunk, and every time something went wrong, this robot came out of the trunk and fixed the car and went back into the trunk. You have that in every cell of your body. All you got to do is give that mechanic the tools to get the job done. And that's detox, and that's spontaneous healing.
You would never not take your car in for an oil change, right? And a filter change when your lights are on, when it's telling you it's time. I mean, you're going to get there. I mean, it may not be tomorrow, but you're going to get there probably in a week or two, right? I have a time where I didn't get there for an oil change and filter. It was my first little yellow VW Bug, and I missed the lesson from my dad. Drove that little thing until it died on a California freeway. It was really scary. But I could get a new engine. I can't get a new liver. Well, maybe, but I can't get a whole new body.
Yeah.
I can't get a new me. So how important, if we're going to get our car in there, this is so much more important. Our liver is like the oil filter in our car. All this gunk gets clogged up in there, and all our blood has to go through the liver. And if our liver is all congested, all clogged up, if we've got a fatty liver, a toxic liver, a congested liver, stones in the liver. People say to me, I don't have to do a gallbladder cleanse, right? Because I don't have a gallbladder. I say, yeah, you do. You got to do a liver cleanse. It's more important.
It's more important
now than ever, because you can get stones in your liver. Oh my goodness, you've got to do a cleanse, do the flush.
You have to educate yourself. I mean, one of the things that we've lost is the education process, and our children should be taught about their body, about detoxification, about how to take care of themselves, about how to listen to your body and recognize the symptoms. Your body will always give you a sign that something's wrong. You might have a slight headache one day. So what do? Most people don't say, well, I have a slight headache. I wonder if that was something that I ate at the restaurant. Maybe it was MSG, artificial sweeteners, excitotoxins, food dyes, titanium dioxide, which is the main problem for fibromyalgia and pain these days that people don't realize. But they're not paying attention. What they do is they say, oh, I have a headache. Let me just run to the medicine cabinet and take some medication. So they're putting a Band-Aid on it.
Okay.
You know, it's like when your oil filter gets clogged up in your car, you don't continue to put fresh oil in. You have to actually change the filter or flush it out.
Disease processes is detoxification. Unfortunately, the word detoxification, it's a cheap word. You know, it's kind of like love. Everybody uses it, but people don't understand. If people really understood what love was, we wouldn't have such a high divorce rate in our country, right? So what exactly do we mean by detoxification? Well, when I'm talking about detoxification, I'm talking about the elimination of things that shouldn't be in the system that prevent us from achieving what they refer to in quantum physics as 0 point. So 0 point is the maximum output with the minimum expenditure. So if you had like a car, for example, it would be the highest rate of speed, the longest distance travel with virtually no gasoline at all, or no energy source at all. So if we can achieve 0 point, that essentially means that we are at the maximum efficiency with the zero expenditure of energy. And I believe that if we can achieve 0 point or get close to 0 point, what happens is the cells inside our body have no other choice but to resonate at a frequency that eliminates everything that shouldn't be in there.
New research on endocrine disruptors, for example, small amounts of petrochemicals, could be paraben, for example, which is in a lot of body care products as a preservative, or bisphenols, which are everywhere because plastic is needing a plasticizer, and that's what they use. Bisphenol A, bisphenol S, bisphenol F, there's an alphabet soup of these. And when they say bisphenol A on the label now, unfortunately, they just replaced it with another bisphenol of equal toxicity. Small amounts have huge effects because they act like hormones. So the dose response linear concept has been completely supplanted by acknowledging that in some cases, the smaller the amount of toxicant you have in your body, the greater effect it could have on changing a cell's entire phenotype makeup into a cancer cell, for example. So this is not just for petrochemicals, this is actually for particle size. So you have this sort of innovation of nanoparticle technology. Titanium dioxide, for example, they use it to glaze, pills white and use it for sunscreen. The particles are so small, we're talking, maybe under 50 nanometers, that they can go right into the pores of the body. And when they attach to the surface of cells, can actually activate the nuclear machinery inside the cell, which changes the cell's phenotype. So previously, the idea was the dose makes the poison. If you have something really small, it's not going to cause a great effect and it can't hurt you. Now we know that the smaller the particle size, the more harmful it can be.
What we have just alone in the water with the fluoride and the chlorine and the arsenic and all those chemicals that are damaging all the different systems in the body, what we really have is an attack on the endocrine system going on right now. And the endocrine system is your pituitary, your pineal, your pancreas, and the largest endocrine gland by your thyroid, parathyroid. That's why we have so many people with thyroid problems, because we have a serious iodine deficiency going on in the world. We have a serious vitamin D deficiency going on, B12 deficiency going on. Those are some of the things that we're deficient in that help regulate the cleansing process. But this attack on the endocrine system is responsible for all of our hormone production.
That was my next question. Could you explain what is the endocrine system for us?
So the endocrine system is glands that produce and regulate hormones. Okay. And we talked about some of them, but the liver is responsible for filtering and detoxifying all these chemicals. And when we look at the majority of chemicals with the phthalates, the plastics, the bromine, chlorine, I say bromine, chlorine, and fluoride because those are really damaging to the to the thyroid gland.
And those are the halogens.
And those are going to be your toxic halogens, and that's why it's so important to have iodine. But the biggest endocrine gland is the gut. And that's why you see so much attention being paid on the gut right now.
Right. I mean, you don't hear that the gut is part of the endocrine system, though.
Right.
Typically.
You don't. And the fact that the appendix is the brain in the body, not the brain up here, but your appendix is the brain in the body, because we have 35 feet of intestinal tract, and that 35 feet is the first exposure point to all of the chemicals and toxins that are coming into your body. Whether you breathe them in, they're going to be in your mucous membranes, they're going to leak down into your stomach. Whether you drink them in, you eat them in, all of that stuff most likely is going to be going down into your gut. And that's what we found. What we really have going on, even though the intestinal tract and the gut is the largest endocrine system, is we have an attack on our gut. Pretty much everything that we're exposed to that attacks the intestinal lining, and that's why it's the #1 thing in my book to heal and to keep cleansed on a regular basis.
Dr. Daniel Newsom.
Hey, my friend.
I'm going to shake your hand very gently here. I just coming out of the bedroom there before I changed in here, I began to open up the door in the bathroom and it was locked, and I ran into it in my shoulder.
Oh.
And so I got a little pain here, but it's kind of an object lesson. I was trying to get out, but the exit was blocked.
There we go.
So I want to talk to you about that problem that we have today, not with doors being locked, but about our exits being blocked, specifically in our body and detoxification.
Absolutely. Well, we have 4 primary exits. Okay, we have our bowel, we have our urinary tract, we have our lungs, our upper respiratory system, and we have our skin. Okay, if one exit is blocked, okay, the next one has to pick up the slack. Okay, primary exit for our solid waste is our bowels. Okay, and I'm gonna give you everybody. It's kind of gross, but this is a good,
Not going to offend me.
it's a great object lesson here. You know, before we had transdermal delivery systems, the creams, the patches, and those types of things. The second fastest way to get a drug into someone's bloodstream was through rectal suppository. Okay, so by inserting a hard tablet in the rectum, that was outside of, you know, an IV. That was the fastest way to get a drug into their system. Okay, faster than sublingual. Okay, so if someone is impacted in the bowel, if the bowel is not moving after each meal, okay, what's being reabsorbed? If we can absorb a hard tablet, okay, it's way easier to absorb soft stool. Okay, so number one for solid waste, our bowel. You know, our bowel has to be open. It has to be moving. Again, 3 times a day is normal. Clinical constipation is 1 bowel movement a day. That's the definition.
So most people are clinically constipated. Let me ask you an uncomfortable question. How many bowel movements are you having each day? The reality is that most people are in a constant state of clinical constipation. In other words, their colon is impacted and the waste cannot be adequately removed. But what's the colon? The colon is also known as the large intestine, and as you can see from the image on the screen, it's comprised of 4 parts: the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon. When you eat food, it breaks down in your stomach and it passes through your intestines. This process is known as digestion. The walls of your intestines absorb nutrients from the food. What remains as waste, fecal matter, passes along to your colon and your rectum. At times, things may go wrong in this process and the waste becomes stuck in the colon. This is known as fecal impaction of the colon. As Doc Newsom just mentioned, a person with a healthy colon will have 3 bowel movements a day shortly after each meal. But as I also just mentioned, most people have an impacted colon and are considered to be clinically constipated. So, the question is, folks, how do we rectify this problem with the rectum? Sherry Calbone, the juice lady, tells us the first step, which is a colon cleanse, which can entail herbal laxatives, enemas, and water irrigation, also called colon hydrotherapy. Again, cleansing the colon is the first step of the detoxification process because these toxins need to exit the body, and a backed up colon can cause them to be reintroduced into the body and the bloodstream rather than exiting as planned.
We'll start with the colon cleanse because always cleanse your colon first, and so that you have a cleared channel when the liver starts dumping toxins. So we start with a juice fast. I usually recommend 3 to 5 days of juice fasting when you do the colon cleanse. Then as you're juice fasting, you drink your fiber shakes, and I usually recommend 3 to 5 a day. And in that you add your bentonite clay and your fiber combination. Okay. And you drink 3 to 5 of those a day. Boy, it starts flushing out stuff out of your colon. It's just incredible.
Here's something interesting, okay, when it comes to the old gut, all right? Yeah. Your colon is a tube that shouldn't be any bigger than a 4-inch in diameter, all right? Okay. But your colon has the capacity to expand up to 16 inches in diameter.
Wow.
Now, the longer you'll say it gets expanded to 16 inches, okay? The longer it stays expanded to that extent, the less it can go back to its normal size.
What will cause it to expand?
Accumulation of waste, you know, not having a bowel movement consistently causes it to expand. You know, with normal transit time in your GI tract, if you eat, you should shortly thereafter have a bowel movement. It's just the way it should work. Okay. If you eat and eat and eat, and then the next day you have a bowel movement, things are going to accumulate in that colon.
Right.
It's just a matter of fact. You can't keep putting things in with, you know, without something coming back out.
Right.
Okay. It's just it's a tube. You stuff stuff in the top, something has to come out the bottom.
Yeah.
You know.
And how many people are there out there that don't have regular bowel movements?
Right.
I mean, it's an epidemic.
It's
isn't
epidemic, absolutely.
Why
for
is
sure.
that?
Dehydration, lack of fiber in the diet, and then you have things like thyroid issues. You know, as soon as the thyroid starts to slow down, so does the colon. So does the whole transit time slows down, and so you become sluggish. You know, other hormonal issues are involved in that. You have different nutritional deficiencies can cause that. An imbalance in the gut flora. You know, if you have like candida, okay. If you ever look at mold when it grows, it kind of makes a network. You know, well, if you have that growing in your gut.
Right. So then, if you want to clean the colon, then maybe probiotics are a good choice to supplement.
Very
with?
helpful. Yes. See, probiotics will keep the waste from accumulating, also. Okay, so if you can clean everything out and then introduce the probiotics, now you're not going to accumulate as much waste there. Enzymes are, they pull things apart, is what they do. You know, enzymes. I worked in Mexico for a few years, and you go before the parties, they would all, they'd pull the meat apart for the tacos and whatnot, you know. In that pulling the strips of meat apart is kind of what enzymes do to our food. You strips them apart and make small pieces, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's the effect of enzymes. So again, for dissolving accumulated waste and things like that, enzymes are super helpful. The stomach actually has 3 layers of muscle. Okay. The small intestine has 2 layers, one going one way, one going the other way, and it's for propelling. Okay. The colon has 1 layer of muscle, and it's just for squeezing.
Okay.
Okay. And again, if that muscle gets too stretched, it doesn't squeeze very well.
Okay.
Okay. And so, taking different herbal supplements, different herbs that are cathartic and laxative, stimulate the colon to.
So not necessarily a bad thing on a short-term basis.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. And what might some of those herbs be?
Buckthorn, Cascara sagrada, sennapods. Those are your most common.
Psyllium.
And psyllium. Psyllium is a fiber.
Okay.
And so what that does is that it creates bulk. And you know how in the fall, all the leaves fall from the tree, and you go out with a rake and rake them up. That's what psyllium does to waste in your body, in your colon. Okay. Kind of rakes it up and gets it, moving on down the chute.
Yeah, got it.
When you're detoxing, you always have to make sure that you're having the foods that are, the rainbow diet is what I call it, right? So all the colored foods, as much as possible. Why? Because they get the nutrients in. But when you're detoxing, you really want to make sure you have the fiber foods. So all your cruciferous, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your cruciferous vegetables, all the fiber to help move things along.
Dr. Seeger was correct. We have to make sure that we have the fiber to help things moving along. But what exactly is fiber? And no, I'm not talking about fiber optics, which is a major building block in the telecommunications industry. Fiber is a plant-derived carbohydrate that cannot be digested by humans, so it passes through your system relatively intact, and it has little or no caloric value. Fiber acts as a natural laxative by increasing stool bulk, which allows stool to pass more readily through the colon. In this next segment, Dr. Edward Group discusses research that he performed early in his career and how this research kept pointing to oxygen being a critical component of cleansing.
And that research led to Otto Warburg's research on oxygen, Nikola Tesla's research on oxygen, Eugene Bloss's research on oxygen, where they came up with products in the late 1800s which were designed for that specific purpose, to be taken internally, that would release monatomic oxygen into the bowel slowly all the way down, which would oxidize or neutralize any chemicals or toxins and bond to them. So you would go to the bathroom the next day or the next morning and you would release all that stuff. So it wouldn't sit in your system. and you would be able to cleanse your intestines on a regular basis safely using something that we take 30,000 breaths of every single day, oxygen, which is not going to have any negative effect on the bowel. So that's when we came up with looking at that technology, and took us 7 years to actually develop a product that would work like that, that people could take and keep their intestines clean. The name of our cleansing product is Oxy Powder. Oxy Powder's been through phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials for IBS and constipation. It's been used for 15 years successfully all over the world, and it continues to give ultimate, really good success rates with people. It's amazing how good you feel when you start cleansing the intestinal tract on a regular basis.
So how do we clean the colon?
All right, so colon, first off is you start out with the psyllium, okay? So in the conventional world, they call it Metamucil. Don't do that one. That's not organic. It doesn't have, then they put an FD dyes in there. It's like, why? It's an herb, stop that. So take psyllium, it's cheap, it's easy, and you take a tablespoon and you mix it in some warm water and you drink it down. I gag. Do you gag when you drink this stuff? I gag.
No.
Yeah, see, I can't. I'm a baby. So
well, you just got to drink it quick.
Yeah, I'd be like gagging the whole way down.
But yeah, it's pretty gritty.
It's like, yeah, it's like, it's just, so what I do is I mix a little bit of grape juice, like pure grape juice, lemon juice, pineapple juice, some little bit of something to take that gagginess away.
Yeah.
And I drink it at night, but here's the thing, when people are detoxing, they might have to take it a couple times in a day, right? So start out with a teaspoon, a heaping teaspoon in the morning, and then a heaping teaspoon at night. And what that does, it will, and so you drink a big glass of water and follow it with another glass of water.
A lot of water,
Here's
right?
a trick, you gotta have 2 glasses of water. If you don't drink 2 glasses of water, don't do it, because it'll block you up and then you will feel really uncomfortable. It'll never hurt you, but you'll feel like you got a brick in your abdomen, and that's not cool. So in the morning and then in the evening, and then drink your glass of water, and then wait an hour or so before you go to bed, otherwise you'll be getting up to go to the bathroom, right? So the psyllium helps to push the colon out, but that's not the only thing. You need something to, it's called the tickle herbs, okay? So these are herbs that tickle your colon, I like to say, because you got the psyllium that gets things moving. It's the fiber. It's like eating like a bowl of broccoli all at one time.
It's like a ton of fiber all at once.
Ton of fiber all at once. But what you really need is you have to have your something to move it along, because it'll get stuck. Your colon is 6 feet long. You got your ascending, your transverse, your descending, and your sigmoid, and that's a lot of colon, and things get plugged up in there. And when I had my clinic, I saw x-rays of how things were plugged up, and diverticuli and polyps, and it's crazy. And everybody has a bad colon. So you need something to help move it along. So something like Cascara sagrada, senna is okay, Cape aloe. There's about 2 or 3 go-to herbs that I recommend. So that tickles the colon and moves it so that when the psyllium is doing its job, it has something pushing it. You have to have peristalsis moving it, right? And without peristalsis, it's just going to sit there. And then that's where people say, wow, I don't feel good, and I'm getting all these reactions.
We also use things like coffee enemas. And if they're really having issues, I send them for colonics.
Okay.
In detoxification, there's two types of detoxification. You have drainage detoxification first, which is what we're talking about. Okay, that's just taking out the trash, getting the garbage out. Drain all the. You turn the filter upside down and shake it out. Drain all the waste out of everything.
Which is important.
It's super important. You got to clear, just like cleaning the kitchen. You got to get all the waste out of the way before you go make dinner or make breakfast. And so. That's your first step of detoxification. The second step is where there's an ion exchange. Okay, the body releases toxins when it has nutrients that it will, it wants nutrients. And so when it starts to absorb nutrients, it'll release toxins. Okay, and so people will see that. They'll start taking a supplement, and it starts getting nutrients into their system, and all of a sudden their tissues and their cells are releasing all these toxins. And all of a sudden they feel sick.
Right.
A way to avoid that before starting a supplement regime is to flush the body out first.
In the body, you know, water is also very important as well. So I also recommend people drink a lot of pure, clean water while they're going through their detoxifications.
Here's something interesting. Here's another reason to clean the colon. 90% of the water you absorb in your colon. Okay. Now think of if your colon, which is supposed to be a 4-inch round tube, is swollen, let's just say 6 inches, okay? And you have 1 inch to 1.5 inches of waste caked on the wall of that tube, okay? And in order to absorb water through your colon, which is where you absorb most of your water, all right?
Yeah.
It has to go through all that waste to get to the
dirty water.
Exactly, you're absorbing
if it even
dirty.
gets there.
Right, you're absorbing dirty water. Isn't that gross?
I'd have to agree with Doc Newsom. The thought of filthy water is pretty gross. But what's even worse is absorbing that filthy water through the colon, considering that the dirt in the water is actually fecal waste and it's impacted along the walls of the colon. One great way to remove the impacted waste is via enemas or colon hydrotherapy, also known as colon irrigation or a colonic, which is a gentle purified water washing of the large intestine to clean and remove built-up fecal material. The person lies on a massage table with a colon cleansing machine, and then water is run very slowly into the colon, removing the encrusted, nasty fecal material, gas and mucus. This allows vital nutrients now to be absorbed more easily and leaves you feeling rejuvenated and healthier. In the next segment, Dr. Darrell Wolfe shares some positive emotional detox techniques that can help you get every day off to a great beginning.
So you get up in the morning, the first thing that you should do is that you should think about 10 things you're grateful for. That's called detoxing, Ty. You're preparing yourself for the day. Okay? So what 10 things you're grateful for, and then I want you to send love to 3 people that you don't like. Okay? Then I want you to get up, and hopefully you're going to get up and have a big bowel movement. And if you don't, there's a problem there. Because instinctively and in nature, we want to have a big bowel movement in the morning.
Right.
Okay? And then what I want you to do when you go to the bathroom is look in the mirror, and I want you to say, "Good morning, Ty. I love you. We're going to have a great day."
Okay.
I want you to honor yourself. Then what I want you to do, Ty, is you can have your choice. You can do lemon and water. You might want to start off with baking soda and water. You might want to start off with apple cider vinegar and water. But I want you to try to do that, and I want you to go with water as long as you can, even up till 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Because I want you to do intermittent fasting. I don't want you to eat from supper until that time.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
So that intermittent fasting period gives you time to cleanse.
Well, that is your, okay, remember something. Okay, so what do most people do? Hey, you know what I'm going to do, man? What are you going to do? I'm going to do a week cleanse. I'm not going to eat anything. You're just ripping your body apart. You know, it's like this. You've got an onion, right? If we peel the layers off gently, we're fine. You want to take a knife and cut deep into it, we're all going to be crying. And then what we do is we have people take what's called our daily cleansing tea every day, every morning and every night.
Okay.
And I'm telling you something, it's not a laxative and it's not a stimulant. Get rid of all laxatives, get rid of all stimulants. Now, why do you want to do that? Well, you want to take this tea because this tea helps to do what? Look after the mother of all organs, which is the large intestine, houses 65% of your immune system. We are walking globs of bacteria. You have what? You have 85 trillion cells. You have 10 times more bacteria. Bacteria is where it's all at. Okay, so bacteria is what eats up the garbage. It's what keeps you well.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we gently cleanse and remove the waste gently every day. And by doing that, this same tea will help to support cleansing the liver, the kidneys, and the rest of the body. This is why the large intestine is so important to be cleansed every day. Because when we become so highly toxic and your liver cannot detoxify properly anymore because it has a burden, then what happens is these toxins will stagnate in your colon, and when you do detoxify, all those heavy toxins will come in the colon. And even people who eat high fiber diets cannot move out the toxins fast enough. That's a fact. They will be reabsorbed. Why do we make ourselves into a manure pile and go, oh man, I feel so lousy, I need to do a detox? So then you go and you do this deep detox cleanse, and guess what? How you doing, man? Oh, I'm in a healing crisis. Why do we need a crisis? I don't even believe in crises. I don't believe in healing crises. There's natural healing crises, but when you do a deep cleanse and you're in a healing crisis, you've just overloaded your system. You're blowing your system out. You don't need to have a migraine. You don't need to be vomiting. You don't need diarrhea. You don't need to have aches and pains throughout your body. You know, everything is about suffering. You notice how our society doesn't just accept it as natural to suffer, it promotes suffering. Everything is about extreme. Why don't we gently cleanse each and every day? Why don't we just learn to love, respect, protect, and honor our body each and every day?
You don't need to vomit and diarrhea and urinate 5 liters a day. That's not necessary. You just need to do this every single day where you're eliminating these chemicals little by little, and then the net effect is that your body's clean, and then you can heal.
Detoxing is good, but you could get crazy on it like anything. You know, you could be focused on only getting rid of the toxins, and it's not that. It's you're doing it to get rid of the toxins so you can build up your immune system. That's your purpose. That's your goal. Because the immune system is what's going to help you heal. So getting rid of the toxins is just what you do every day, a little bit at a time, like eating a salad, like drinking water. It's something that's necessary. You're doing a little bit extra, but you don't need to do it you don't need to do it so intensely to the point where it's like, oh, I got to live like this. It doesn't have to be.
I agree 100% with Dr. Seeger and Mike Adams and Dr. Wolf. You do not have to detox in such an extreme manner that you feel horrible all the time. However, a brief temporary period of feeling badly after beginning a cleanse shouldn't scare you. As old excess toxins flush out of the body and you get rid of all this unwanted bacteria and the microbes and viruses and they die off, you can actually experience a temporary detox or cleansing reaction. Based on the work of Dr. Karl Herxheimer in the late 1800s, this temporary feeling of illness is known as the Herxheimer reaction, and it's actually a sign of healing. These reactions can indicate that your body has started to cleanse itself as it quickly tries to catch up on all the overload of toxins being released. Next up, Dr. Edward Group goes into detail about an oftentimes overlooked part of a full body cleanse, the harmful organism cleanse.
The next cleanse that we found is the harmful organism cleanse or the parasite cleanse, and that's a huge problem right now that people don't realize. We are living in an epidemic right now of microbes, parasites, and the word parasite definition is actually any harmful organism that lives off of a host mechanism. Most people associate parasites with worms, but that's not the case. Viruses, bacteria, fungus. There's a fungus among us, Candida. We're overrun with that because of all the sugars. We have worms that are infecting our bodies. There's like 6 out of 10 children now that have worms and don't even know it in their body. All the animals. Because the environment is changing, there's so many new organisms that are coming into our body. And what happens this was one of the reasons why we had so many people coming in that were doing juicing with cancer, degenerative disease. It doesn't matter what illness you have, it doesn't matter what symptoms you have. If you detoxify and cleanse your body, your self-healing mechanism will fix any condition in the body. We had so many people coming in that were being seen by all these other people that were doing juicing and all this stuff, and they weren't getting better. And I would say, did you do a parasite cleanse? Did you do a harmful organism cleanse? Well, the FDA doesn't want us saying parasites now, so we have to say harmful organism.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
So they made us take all the reference to parasites off our site. So we had to change it to harmful organisms.
Okay.
Because there's a big war right now, going on from the pharmaceuticals and FDA against natural medicine.
Yeah.
But what we found was, and what all the natural doctors are finding, is that what do parasites do in the body? We found that cancer patients have over 1 trillion organisms in their body. And Royal Raymond Rife traced the BX virus to one of the main causes of cancer. Hulda Clark to the liver fluke to cancer. These are all harmful organisms that could be associated with cancer or any type of degenerative disease. If you have any disease or condition, most likely you have harmful organisms inside your body because your pH is off. So that was the next stage of let's move into what's the next cause of all these illnesses. And I was saying all these people were coming to us that had been on juicing, but what they hadn't done is they hadn't done a parasite or a harmful organism cleanse. And just because you're juicing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get rid of all those harmful organisms in your body, because what was happening is the harmful organisms secrete byproducts into your fluids and into your body. Isopropyl alcohol, highly acidic. Phenol, formaldehyde. All of these toxic substances, lactic acid, are the waste products. And if you have millions of organisms in your body going to the bathroom in your body, no matter how much you're juicing and everything, if you're not eliminating and killing off those harmful organisms, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a chronic acidic situation in your system. A good harmful organism cleanse is gonna take 6 weeks, because the cycle from eggs all the way through adult larva in most cases is 6 weeks. So we developed a product called Paratrex, and it has the black walnut hull in it, it has clove in it, it has anamu in it, it has different rare herbs that are designed to not only, a lot of the harmful organism and parasite cleanses out there are designed to attack worms only. But we found that it's more than that. There's more organisms, especially like fungus and things like that. So we put different oregano leaf, different substances and compounds in there that would create a broad spectrum from bacteria, virus, worms, everything that they could get on. Actually, one of the ingredients in there too is diatomaceous earth, which works extremely effective for different types of harmful organisms. So that's a combination blend. As a matter of fact, we had somebody contact us the other day that was on it for a few days, and they pulled a worm out of their nose.
Oh.
Can you believe that?
Wow. We have black walnut, we have clove in that, we also have slippery elm, and then Cascara sagrada is also a good anti-parasitic, and that's in there. In the liver, it's interesting, real interesting that NAC, N-acetyl.
That's antiparasitic.
Is antiparasitic.
Okay.
Very, very good in the liver.
Awesome.
Something that's little known fact about that particular nutrient. It's really nice. And then virtually all of the Essiac herbs are antiparasitic in the blood and lymphatic system.
Okay.
So both, your blood circulatory system and your lymphatic circulatory system.
Usually the people that have gone to multiple doctors, nobody can figure out what's going on with them. They run all the tests because, all these harmful organisms, you can take a blood test and your blood still looks normal. They hide. They're like little leeches in your system that just suck all your nutrients and suck everything from you, but don't really, a medical doctor or anybody else, it's really hard to determine which ones are in there. There's really not a lot of tests for those. So these are people that go all around and try to find all these solutions and never end up with a solution, are the ones that are suffering from Lyme, or now you have Morgellons out there where you have people like strings coming out of people. You have all these weird organisms that they're finding in the chemtrails that they're spraying down on top of us.
Morgellons, yeah, the chemtrails.
So there is definitely an attack. I mean, then you have biological. Look at these mosquitoes right now that are GMO mosquitoes that are carrying the Zika virus and all that. I mean, we have a biological warfare attack on us right now. Everybody needs to be aware of that.
Wow, that's intense, isn't it? Dr. Group said that we are under biological attack. I think the facts support this assertion. Whether it's the polluted air, pesticide-laden crops, GMO foods, and GMO mosquitoes, the invisible attacks from electromagnetic radiation, which we will discuss at length in episode 3, or fluoridated water. Speaking of fluoride, turmeric, humic acid, and fulvic acid are all excellent substances at removing fluoride from the body. Now, Dr. Daniel Newsom has developed an amazing supplement. It's called Turmeric 3D. Now, this contains all 3 of these, along with ginger, turkey tail mushroom, ashwagandha, and vitamin D3. Regarding fulvic acid, it works to achieve and maintain an appropriate chemical balance in the cells, which includes ridding them of fluoride and other toxins. One of the most powerful free radical scavengers and antioxidants known to man, fulvic acid will not only help eliminate internal fluorides, but also will replace them with trace minerals and other nutrients. Another weapon against fluoride toxicity is tamarind, which is a tropical fruit tree native to Eastern Africa. A 2002 study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that the sour, acidic fruit possesses a unique ability to capture and flush fluoride poisons out of the body. In children, tamarind consumption was found to significantly increase the amount of fluoride excreted via the urine, as well as decrease the amount of magnesium and zinc excreted from the body. And while we're talking about detoxifying from fluoride, I need to also mention iodine. The cells throughout the entire body contain special receptors that are intended for iodine, but they become occupied instead by fluoride as a result of excess fluoride exposure. As a result, the body develops iodine deficiency, which can lead to thyroid disease, infertility, mental retardation, early mortality, and a host of other illnesses. Because of this, it's important to regularly supplement with a high-quality iodine supplement. Dr. Edward Group has developed an excellent product called Detoxidine, which is actually considered to be nascent atomic iodine. There are lots of high-quality iodine supplements. Dr. Group's is not the only one, but the reality is that you need to be supplementing with some sort of iodine because we're all iodine deficient. Now, summarizing some of the best techniques to kill harmful organisms, we have black walnut, clove, slippery elm, Cascara sagrada, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, neem, oregano leaf, and diatomaceous earth. I know it might be overwhelming, but relax and don't panic. As my good buddy, Robert Scott Bell, always says at the end of his nationally syndicated radio show, the power to heal is yours. In this next segment, RSB, as I affectionately call him, discusses Samuel Hahnemann and homeopathy as it relates to detoxification, and Mike Adams has some humorous yet telling comments about the blood.
If I go back to Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who developed homeopathic medicine, again, 1790s, early 1800s, he was working with the concept of the simillimum to find one specific remedy that matched most all of the symptoms of the patient. That was called, the simillimum. And in this case, he, interesting, lost history of Hahnemann. There's a great book by Rima Handley called A Homeopathic Love Story. It tells the time of Hahnemann in his latter years where he married a young French noblewoman, moved to Paris. He began to see patients in Paris that were very different from the German peasant population, the farmer folks in Germany his whole life prior to that. And they had met, that one single remedy very successfully and remediated these diseases. But in Paris, he was having difficulty. It wasn't having the same success. And he posited that the Parisians, the high society, the wealthy elite, these were the different folks from the German peasants, were living a different lifestyle, sort of a wrong lifestyle. They were abusing alcohol, they were eating some refined foods. Sugar became something you couldn't get. Suddenly the Parisians, they had the wealth, they could get the sugars, and they were suffering from different forms of chronic diseases. And he posited that the lifestyle was wrong. We have to clean the lifestyle up. Now, the remedy sulfur is commonly used, and you look in the Materia Medica and you'll see skin conditions. It seems to have kind of a spinning kind of, how would you call it, spin things out of the body, because it really works well with skin conditions. And what happened with the early years with sulfur was always the skin condition remedy without fail. In Paris, he was like, well, it doesn't work the same way, only one remedy. So he began to go more complicated, if you will. He would do more than one remedy in sequence or at a time, and he found that he was able to undo this lifestyle scenario. Now, there was more building upon that later in France, because there was a French school that built upon this, and there were others that looked at this concept and they named it something, drainage, which is a fancy way of saying drainage, right? If I'm going to be a plumber, I want to be a plumber in France because it's drainage, right? It's very exotic sounding instead of just drainage. But that concept is detoxification. And what it did was it expanded on that initial discovery of Hahnemann to say lifestyle diseases are real, chronic diseases are different than just acute scenarios where you have an explosion of a microbe that you got to beat back, help the immune system to overcome it. Right. So he began with this thing, and then the French homeopaths that followed up on that work with this drainage principle, and that is to work with the liver, the kidneys, the spleen, the colon, all of the organs of elimination simultaneously, with very low attenuations relative to what the potencies of homeopathy can be in a gentle way. We didn't want to power pack them and overwhelm them, but gently over time to undo the time it took them to get into that mess. Now, it wouldn't take the same amount of time to get out of it, but in real terms, you didn't want to shock the system. People have a Herxheimer response, a devastating overwhelm. I think I'm going to die. We wanted to model it in a usable fashion, one that wouldn't frighten people. So what we're doing in complementing all aspects of detoxification from a physical perspective, herbal, supplemental, mineral, and I use all of these things. Homeopathically, we can do it in a kind of a metabolic communication way, which is the way we're working homeopathically, energetically. And we can work simultaneously with all of these organs of elimination. And we can do it gently, safely over time. so that it will enhance and complement or even break through the blockages that all of these other methods have not been able to achieve. So I don't look at it as an isolationist approach, but as a very key integral part of that recovery in ways that those that are materialistic reductionists, even in the holistic realm, sometimes don't understand, but we can do it. So we got to purify the blood. Again, we have the remedies to do that. Now for the entire GI tract, we know it's not just about detox, it's assimilation. There are formulations that I work with. Baptisia tinctoria is one of my favorites for the gut, but there are many ways we can address gut health for assimilation and detoxification along with the liver. So I like it to like a three-pronged approach where we do the elimination, the assimilation, and the free radical inflammation aspect. And that is a comprehensive detox strategy from a homeopathic point of view that it just takes all of the things we already know to a whole other level.
Here's a really important concept along those lines, and then I'll wrap this up. But you know, you're making new blood every day, right? A lot of people don't think about this, but you're making new blood. Where's your blood made? Well, it's made inside your bones, for example, your large bones in your body. It's making new blood all the time. Well, what's that blood made out of? Are your bones magical? Is the blood teleported in from another universe? The answer is no. It's made from the stuff that you just ate and drank for the last 24 hours. So if you think about it, if you want clean blood, you have to have clean food and water and a clean environment that you took in for the last few days, and then that blood is going to be clean. If you don't have lead in your diet, you're not going to have lead in your blood, right? Now, how much blood is replaced every day? Just a fraction of your total blood volume. So over maybe 30 days, you would replace most of your blood, or 45 days, even more, 60 days, even more. So if you eat healthy in a clean way for, let's say, 60 days, 90 days, by the end of that 90 days, guess what? Your blood has all been replenished and rebuilt. You have eliminated, you have urinated out all the old toxic blood that was causing you cancer, and you have regenerated fresh new blood automatically using the materials of health, the clean foods, the clean water, all the clean things that you took in. That's what's now in your blood.
Now I have to admit, Mike Adams had me laughing out loud when he said, "Is your blood magically transported from another universe?" The health ranger is really funny, and he's got a great sense of humor. That made me laugh. But no, the blood is made from what we eat and what we drink. This illustrates how important it is for us to eat clean food, to drink clean water, and to detoxify our bodies so that we can have clean blood, because life is in the blood. We'll learn more about detoxifying with homeopathy from RSB in the next episode, but in the meantime, there are a few natural ways that we have that we can purify our blood. Essiac tea, burdock root, chlorella, dandelion, ginger root, sarsaparilla, that's one of the ingredients in root beer, by the way, and goji berries. Remember, you can find the products that I mentioned in this documentary at the website on the screen right now. We live in a toxic world. Detoxification is vital. I think that Mike Adams, Dr. Bryce Wild, Rachel Parent, and Dr. Darrell Wolfe sum it up in this final segment of this first episode.
Just by living in our modern society, you are inundated with toxic chemicals every second of every day. Every breath you take, every bite you eat, you have these toxic chemicals coming into your body. And if you don't detox from these chemicals, you will end up with cancer or diabetes or heart disease or Alzheimer's or kidney failure. It is a statistical certainty. And yet, the good news is you can detox. It's incredibly simple. It's incredibly safe. Your body knows how to do it naturally. And the steps are very easy to follow. In fact, they are highly rewarding.
Once we learn about our own abilities, our unique abilities to detoxify, we'll probably be much more astute to understand what we should do about that internal state. And what I mean by that is often it's more about what we avoid than what we perhaps put into ourselves as an end game to treatment. It's how we go through life minimizing on our toxic exposure.
I want my kids to grow up in a world where there will be butterflies and bees. I want my kids to grow up in a world where the soil isn't contaminated with pesticides and herbicides. I want my kids to grow up in a world where there's enough water for everyone. I want my kids to grow up in a world where there isn't 1,000 animals or insects going extinct every day. And that's my goal. That's more of a motive to me than money.
If I can't do this, I don't want to do anything. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to do. This is my passion. This is what makes my heart beat. This is what makes my blood flow. okay? For a person to find their passion on this planet is the #1 goal. And when people find that they can actually get their lives back, then that is like the biggest joy that I could ever feel.